Welcome. Today I am here with Waqas Pervaiz. Dr. Waqas Pervaiz is a chiropractor out of Malta, New York, and he is the co-founder and fitness director at Malta Chiropractic and Sport Rehab. At Malta, he aspires to help people through health, fitness, and community service. He's also been a volunteer fireman for over 15 years and assists in his family's motel business. Waqas himself stays active daily and strives to get better in everything he's involved in, and this spills over to his care of patients and high-end athletes alike. I know Waqas was the team chiropractor for the unfortunately now defunct Albany Empire AAFL team, who won the championship last year. And unfortunately, due to timing, I know there's a lot of relatively new startup leagues right now having a lot of trouble. So there might not be.
It's been a crazy year in transition, and then with the pandemic, a lot of stuff has put us on halt with some of the connections we were proposed to make with different athletes. So, and the different teams locally, whether it's minor leagues or high level athletes, or whether it's high school, middle school, and so on.
Yeah, quite literally, it's an unprecedented time right now, and I know everybody's kind of scrambling to figure things out. And for me, I know a lot of people listening to my podcast for me are more on the Canadian side of the border. I know things are a little different for you guys south of the border. What's the climate with the COVID situation and the shutdown look like there?
I think at this point in New York, with Governor Cuomo, has been doing his due diligence to make sure all emergency services, healthcare providers, essential workers in a sense, get the PPEs and the protection that they need to do their job as best as they can. Even now, I think it was yesterday at 8 p.m., he passed another, I don't know if it's a law or a very high recommendation on anyone that is an essential worker. The owner of that worker or the employer needs to provide masks minimally to all the employees that are working as essential workers. I'm also a firefighter in my town, so we're dealing with people in emergency services. Then at the clinic, we're dealing with people with acute and subacute pain. So it's just we're trying to handle it, and in my community, we're trying to handle it as best as we can and keep the social distancing aspect. And you see people hanging out and this and that, and there's nothing you can do besides just let them know what's up.
Absolutely. And I know you're in a similar situation from a more of a clinical standpoint, where in Ontario, at least, and through most of Canada, it's deemed essential care only. So things like your acute, subacute pain, people having a lot of problems with their day-to-day, or people who would otherwise be going to the hospital. And obviously that's somewhere where we'd rather people who could get care elsewhere weren't at this point.
That's exactly it, man. Just trying to make sure that we lessen the load on the hospitals that are already reached super saturation with their capacity, and trying to triage a little bit of that musculoskeletal aspect or complaints that people come in that we can handle as chiropractors. And that would just benefit the hospital and the community. And we can, pending there's no like flu-like symptoms or shortness of breath and other potential symptoms that cause our symptoms of COVID. We wouldn't want them coming in here with something of that nature. If they are positive, then they need to quarantine. We can do telehealth, as you and I are, recording here. We're doing a video conference as well, so we can have that be an aspect of chiropractic care. Because that's one of the things that we do here in our office is the rehab-driven, research-aware chiropractic services. People tend to say there's a point terms like research-driven and all, research bias and stuff. We're not so much research. Everything isn't revolving around research, because some research negates other research, right? So we always say we're research aware. Like, we know there's a yes to something, but we also know there's a no to that same thing. Which one holds truer, right? So we know there's a yes to ice sometimes, and we know there's a no to ice sometimes, right? And there's a reason for ice. So
Absolutely. And I feel like that's actually an aspect of chiropractic care that not everybody is necessarily familiar with. That obviously every chiropractic office is a little different, and walking into one office, you might get something a little bit different. But something I feel like a lot of people don't happen to be as aware of is that working with exercises and rehab type care that can be accessed through chiropractic as well. So what kind of considerations, obviously, again, everybody being different, would you typically be making for people coming in with really acute pain of different types right now?
Sure. So the biggest thing what we try to do is first of all figure out the mechanism that caused the pain. What movement is hurting? What's your abnormal movement pattern? And then if we can figure out that abnormal movement pattern and then figure out what mechanism is causing the pain to occur, reverse engineer it, and then give them something that makes it feel better in the office without actually doing a lot of hands-on stuff, whether it's a foam roller, a stretch, exercise, an activation, a movement that makes it feel better. And then we can get to a point that says, okay, this makes that thing feel better. Great. This thing is your exercise to continue doing outside of our office to make it feel better longer. So, example, somebody comes in with low back pain, right? Low back pain is a symptom, not an actual diagnosis. Low back pain occurred because either there was a disc, you moved wrong, a facet, compression, this, we don't know, right? That's why we do that big history. So once we figure out, okay, low back pain occurred due to a disc injury, whether it's a hernia, whether it's a bulge, whether it's a protrusion and all that jazz, we see, let's try McKenzie extensions, specifically lumbar McKenzie extension. If it felt better, great. That's something you can do at home. You don't need us to do it with you, stand by you. We always audit. So you do the extensions in the office. We make you through 10 series of the McKenzie extensions. And we audit it. Hey, let's test the thing that hurt. Did it get better? Okay, it's about 30% better. Great. I'll take 30%. I want to get greedy, but not right now. Let's be patient with it. Also, say we decide, you know what, you need chiropractic. You got to get adjusted. You got to get adjusted. So that means an adjustment in your office. How long does it actually take you to adjust the patient? Maybe 5-7 seconds through full body if you actually took the time to put them all together and like, okay, right? So let's just say it took a minute to adjust full body. And they come in 7 days out of the week. So that means 7 minutes I'm spending with them actually adjusting them. If they can do those exercises on their own, they don't have to count on us all the time. Also, we've just empowered the patient that says, you can do this. This is on you now. We're going to catalyze it. We're going to help it. We're going to adjust you. We're going to do some other things. We're going to build off it. We're going to make it a little bit harder. Let's see if we can go a little bit longer. Let's see if we can go a little bit more. And if we can get a little greedy on you getting better. But it should predominantly be your care, because there's going to come a time where you won't need us, which is good. And say that pain comes back. And when and if that pain comes back, you'll know and remember those exercises you did that made it feel better. Do them. And if it doesn't, then something else is going on. Come on in the office. We'll take care of you. It's like when you work out. And people haven't worked out in a long time, right? Quotations, air quotes, long time. And then you go back to the gym. I used to bench 350 pounds. Great. Are you going to go back and bench 350 pounds? Probably not. You're going to have to slowly work into it. So when and if you re-injure yourself, you'll know to prehab before you do those things to make it worse.
Absolutely. And I think that is an awesome way of looking at things. And especially in a time like right now where, as much as I love working with people and caring for patients, I don't necessarily want patients coming into my office. And at this point, I'm in the same situation as you. If somebody is in severe pain and in need of care, then I will make the consideration, especially if it's keeping them away from the hospitals and keeping them both out of potential harm's way in terms of potential infections, and trying to free up the resources in healthcare. But otherwise, yeah, telehealth, a lot of exercises, and yeah, trying to empower those patients with things that they can do from home. And I really think that's something that is going to be absolutely invaluable with the uncertainty over how long it's going to be before we're able to really see patients regularly again and care for people the way that, I'll admit I'm biased to wanting to do hands-on things with people because that's my background. That's where I see results in front of me, and it's wonderful. And, sometimes it is, I think, a little easier to get quicker results with the adjustment. That's why I'm a chiropractor. But being able to empower people and even that slow growth or slow healing process. I had a couple check-ins yesterday, and there were a couple shoulder conditions. I weren't sure how they were going to respond to care, and we did our best, came up with some exercises, and I think the overall consensus was after give or take a week and a half, we were 70% better, and there were no additional neck or back issues at this point. So it was a nice step in the right direction there.
If I just grab something.
Yeah, go for it, Jim. All being said, so that being part of your practice right now, with dealing with acute patients, I know a big part of your practice was also with athletes, obviously having worked with the Empire and doing a lot of training. How are you adapting to help those types of patients at this point?
Yeah, and a lot of our predominant stretches or exercise that people can't, quote unquote, hurt themselves on, we put on our website. So sometimes we'll just direct them right there, and some people will go to our website to check out the exercises. We use a lot of Stu McGill's base and the big three, and some of the screening process that we do before we get into the actual rehab. With the athletes themselves, it's hard. So I'll give you an example. We've been training some athletes at this point before the pandemic, right? Then we had a big reduction of patient base. Now those athletes, we try to give an exercise immediately. We try to give a rehab, we try to give a prehab, whatever you want to call it. We try to give that as soon as you get to the office, because we want to show you that there's more to what we do in the clinic besides adjusting, right? We have our fitness center. We also have our back rehab program, which is a bridge program for people that are hurt, so now they can do daily activities, but they also want to jump in the fitness world. So we have a bridge program for them as well. And we have a virtual reality program for people that have a little bit of height phobia, movement phobia, so kinesiophobia. So we have that as well for people. So we have all these tools. Now, the question you ask is, how can you do it when they can't come in at this point, especially at the level that those guys are at, whether it's high school, college, and further up. That's difficult to answer. We haven't had anybody at this point that needed it at that level because all their sporting events have been put on pause. Now, outside of where we are now, they usually just come in and tell us, hey, this hurts when I do this. And that's the great thing about athletes, because they're so in tune with their body. You can just tell them, hey, when I externally rotate and I'm laying down and my left toe is flexed, it hurts. I'm like, okay, that's a weird one, but let's just check it out, right? So that's really cool that they are able to be so in tune and they can check in with themselves when things aren't going right or feeling right. So we try to do an assessment, whether it's an FMS or just a screen, a movement screen, some kind. And from there, we can, like I said, reverse engineer it, because I have no idea what's going on until you come in and I ask a question. So you tell me my shoulder hurts. Okay, that's one puzzle piece. Okay, what makes it hurt? How long has it been hurting? Does it go into the arm? Any nerve stuff, any muscle stuff, as you know, right? So you do your full exam. So all those things guide me into a decision or close to what I think is happening, and then I reverse engineering and how to make that thing do better and feel better. I don't know if that answered your question, by the way.
Absolutely. I think it does, at least.
Yeah.
And interestingly, especially for those of us working with athletic populations, because they're really almost every competition that I'm aware of has been canceled, and people are at this point training from home, and I'm seeing a lot fewer injuries, which is nice.
We've been,
and I know that's going to change as soon as everybody gets back in the gym, and I have a lot of patients. I have a lot of friends. I know that they will be trying to max the bench out at 350 pounds the day the gym opens again. And there's going to be a whole different slew of things that I'm having to deal with that I haven't in a while.
And even with the sport, doesn't have to be, pro athletes. We have firefighters. I used to train in our area, and we used to train them fire specific movements, right? We have firefighting gear, we have firefighting gloves, we have a bunch of things they would be wearing on their calls. And where's my battery running low?
Oh.
Hang tight 1 second. Let me see what we got. Give me 1 sec. All right, I gotta plug it in.
No worries.
Yeah. So with the firefighters that we train, we were running them through a fitness program to make sure that health-wise, conditioning-wise, they were able to take on that sport themselves. Everybody assumes sports are athletics. Not all sport is specific to athletics. Like we have the firefighters, we have the EMTs, we have the fire police. We were also supporting those guys in fitness. And if they needed help, if it got hurt, they would always come in and we would assess how can we make them better firefighters and it's just being an athlete. You're just a different sport in your athletics. So then when a lot of these guys were getting hurt doing normal stuff at home, but not on the fire grounds, we're like, something else is going on. So we looked into that, and that showed us a little bit different on how they move. Meaning, when you're on the fire grounds, when you're playing a sport, you're always active, right? You're engaging your core, you're moving and shaking the way you're supposed to be. When you're in your home, you're just relaxed, you're just hanging out, man. You pick up something small, you're like, oh, man, that pencil was super heavy, because you moved wrong. You weren't ready for the thing you were about to do. It's never I forget who said it, it's always the load you weren't ready to move onto, or like, it's always a load that you weren't ready for that ends up hurting you, right? You're lifting heavy weights, you're going to engage, you're going to tighten and then push and pull whatever you need to do. But if it's a small box and you went to go, oh, it's a heavier box, I just hurt myself. So, yeah,
I've definitely seen that more times than I would have liked in practice at this point already, where, great big guy can probably deadlift me while I'm deadlifting my max deadlift. And it was something stupid. There was the turn and bend type, trying to lift the box, and it's never, and I'll hear it. It's like, no, you know what? I did this and I did this and I don't understand because it didn't hurt when I did any of this. And then when I did something innocuous that shouldn't have bothered anything, then all of a sudden that's where I got all the pain. So I can absolutely attest to that.
It's super silly. And, we have our bridge program and nobody in our area has it. And we are letting people know locally about it outside of the patients that we have, and they're super interested in it. But it's never athletic dependent, the people that are in it. So we have some young people, athletes in there, and we have some older people that are in there to help them get to the next level for their fitness. And the young guys are trying to keep up with the older guys, whether it's the different movements that we're doing, different engagements that we're doing, different holds that we're doing. And they're like, man, they're sweating. They can't hold those positions because athletes are really good at compensating. They will find a way. And that you cannot compensate when we have them go through the series of movements. You just can't. We are honing them into moving properly, in firing the right things to make sure you stabilize centrally and mobilize perfectly, right? Moving the arms and legs, but keeping the spine stiff as you do it. And they're like, man, if I just bend a little bit, no, you can't bend it, man. You gotta find hip move. Okay, your hip's not moving so good then. Your shoulder's not moving so good then. So yeah.
And actually, on that note, I feel like this time is a great opportunity for the athletes listening to sit down and really try and figure out where you are weak or struggle, for lack of a better way to phrase that, because you're absolutely right, Doc. There's so many athletes that compensate so well, and if they allow themselves to compensate, are really well able to move through a range of motion or move a certain amount of weight through that range. And as soon as you try and isolate some muscles or some movements, some joints, they don't work at all. And that athlete could be so much better if they weren't compensating the whole time. They just happen to already be a really good athlete, even more despite the compensations. And as I know, you know, and I know, with all those compensations, chances are they're more likely going to be prone to injury eventually when we return to sport and complex movement. And if you take this time and really try and pay attention, there's a lot of YouTube tutorials in how to do your own functional movement assessments and how to pick out what some of those weaknesses are. And then next step, how to correct them too. You know, it's not like you, even for most of us without a significant amount of weight in our home gyms, most of us don't have the opportunity to be training like we regularly would anyways. And again, this could be an awesome time to go through and do some of those things that are sort of easy to neglect because they're boring sometimes, doing a lot of isolated movements and working on a lot of accessory muscles. But when the shutdown eventually ends and you return to whatever kind of competition you're in, be it football or weightlifting or dance or whatever else, bodybuilding, if you've taken this time to really work out those compensation patterns, you're going to return more resilient, faster, stronger, and just better able to execute everything that you want to.
And I want to piggyback off of what you're saying with the boring work, the not so fun stuff, right? That's the concept that I want to portray, because people don't realize. Pick any sport, right? Let's just pick soccer, simple sport. How many times did you have to learn how to dribble the ball to then get good at dribbling the ball while running, while sprinting, while someone's chasing you, while multiple people are chasing you, right? In a game, in a soccer game, what is it, like 90 minutes or 120 minutes? I forget exactly. How many times are you actually have the ball, right? So let's just say half the time. So let's say, I forget exactly, I'm really bad at soccer. So let's play basketball. Okay, so let's do basketball, okay? So in a game, how many hours are spent before the game starts, right? Of practice and weight training and everything else, right? Let's just say 30 hours a week is spent on actual practice time and an hour and a half on game time, right? Cool. The difference is, even in game time, how much time do you actually have the ball? You don't have the ball that often. So let's just say you have the ball for 30 minutes out of those game. Okay. How many times are actually being guarded, shooting, all that stuff? It's slowly becomes minute and smaller. But you spent so many hours and hours a day and a week just so you can perfect that great layup, just so you can perfect that great alley-oop, just so you can perfect that great turnover, just so you can perfect that ball handling, just so you can perfect that turnover. Just for that one turnover, you spend hours to do it. And that's why you have to do the boring stuff. Because on game day, when it's time to lift, when it's time to push, when it's time to carry, when it's time to whatever, that's the time to shine. And it becomes more just repetition, perfection with repetition, without repeating the wrong things. And sometimes it is good. So I do agree that you should be practicing, but someone who's an expert in that should be monitoring your practice, because sometimes you can't see yourself, whether you're squatting. Am I jumping properly? Are my knees knocking when I go to jump or land? Am I landing improperly? Am I moving weird when I go to do this? I don't know, unless someone watches me, and I can't watch myself doing it. So that's why you and I, and people that have high-level degrees or are experts or have certain certifications that have executed those certifications with people, come into play, because we want to monitor, we want to make sure, we want to cue, we want to guide the proper way, because you can't see yourself when you're doing a lot of these things. You know you're not supposed to be doing that when you do it, but how can you tell when you can't see yourself outside of recording? Then you got to record from the front, you got to record from the side, maybe a diagonal view, maybe you're out of the camera when you went to go jump. So it's like all those things play a role in it, because you're right, it is boring, but it has to be done. And if you want to get to the next level, or if you want to maintain the level that you're at, you got to put in the work.
That is, I think, a great takeaway from all this. And yeah, like I said, I really don't plan for where these go, but this has been sort of like the perfect direction that I couldn't have even really hoped for. In terms of how, especially as like athletes, you can take advantage of all the chaos and not really being able to train normally, or really have any opportunity to do anything normal, is to do the abnormal, do the grit work that.
And it's funny, I have a couple of athletes that I train. We have to put a pause on them. They're young athletes in their middle school, high school. And some of them are like, it's not fun. Why can't we do that thing we did for fun? I'll throw in a couple of fun stuff because I want to make sure I keep their camaraderie up, their presence of the sport up, because I don't want to beat up everybody that comes in. My goal isn't to beat you up. My goal is to make you better than yesterday. So when we went back to basic movements, they're like, I don't get it. I was like, I know, because I know you have not been practicing it. I can see it in your move. You don't see it. I see it. That's why I'm the director and the coach, to make sure you guys are guiding. The coach is supposed to cue and see the potential in people and use that potential to grow. You know, someone else might have 10% potential, but that is really high compared to someone else who's at a lower level that might have more potential, but it does not exceed the 10%. So from my perspective, you, myself, other, great personal trainers, chiropractors, rehab specialists, whatever you want to call them, wizards, they need to be there to monitor, to cue, to see what isn't right. We're not going to pat you on the back every time you do something right. We're going to adjust the things that need to be corrected, so then you will know the difference in what was wrong and what was right. And that's why I like training the athletes, because they can always check in. Did you mean turn the ankle out or in? Yeah, I want it out when you step, and it's going to end up rolling in when you push off. Okay, yeah, do 10 reps of it. Really feel how it was. Now go back to what you were doing. Oh, that doesn't feel right. Exactly. So it's the audit process, whether it's at the clinic when seeing patients, whether it's at the fitness center, seeing personal training clients, wherever we might be, the audit plays the big role.
Absolutely. And it is, I mean, I don't know if we will ever have as good a time again in our lifetime to sit down and do that audit.
It's a terrible time, and it's a great time. And I've seen this incident this crisis that we're in. I try to see everything in a positive. For me, it's sometimes this is letting you slow down a little bit. I have a pretty high-paced schedule to keep. So this has forced me to chill out a little bit, which is super crazy for my mind. Anyone that is like a type A personality, So it's
absolutely
difficult to go. You get up at 5 and you get done by 11, and then you get up at 5, and it doesn't matter if it's your day off, and you still got to get up at 5 and get it started. Okay, maybe you're sleeping in a little bit. Maybe you're spending more time with your family. Maybe you're spending more time with your kids, or practicing self-love, whether it's reading a book, reading something that's academically inclined so you can appreciate your sport better, maybe watching podcasts or listening to podcasts, things of that nature, educating yourself, learning a new skill, whatever it may be. It's your life. You got to do it. No one's going to help you but you.
And I think that is a great message. So a couple rapid fire things just to sort of take things out. What are you most looking forward to when the world returns to normal?
Probably going to the gym early in the morning. I've been going to the gym at like 8, 9 o'clock, and it is throwing my whole schedule off. So I usually go at like 5 o'clock, and it's my piece. It drives me for the day. So I'm really looking forward to just being able to go to the gym early in the morning. It's a big part of my life, and I miss it. I mean, I have my own fitness center, so I can just go whenever, but it's just different when you have the people around, or it's just when you go to a facility, it just forces you to work out a little bit more. Versus
Absolutely. No, I get that. And then the other one, and I don't know if it'll 100% apply for you because most people I've talked to in Canada are fully quarantined right now, but what has been your favorite quarantine snack?
oh God, I have a huge sweet tooth. As much as I talk about fitness and staying strong, flexible, brownies that I've been making with white chocolate chips, I don't know why. I just love it so much. Like, how do you say no to that stuff? You don't.
You do well, sugar is quite addictive, so like I see where that's coming from.
I have a little bit of an addictive personality. If I get wrapped up in something, I'm 100% in. You know. So I'm actually excited to not be in quarantine so I can stop eating that stuff.
Yeah, right. Getting back on some sort of normal schedule, I think will
That's
be
it.
good for most people in a lot of ways. But again, might as well, since we're stuck with the opportunity, might as well try and take it.
It's funny because we have fasting coming up next week. So we'll be being at home, but also we'll be fasting from sunrise to sunset for 30 days. So there'll be even more isolation. So you can't just eat because
How are you going to fill your time?
yeah, what am I going to do?
Oh, dear. All right. Well, good luck with that. And thank you so much for coming on. It's been great catching up with you today, Waqas.
Absolutely, Doc. I appreciate you letting me be on this thing. I'm super excited for what happens with your future. Keep me posted what's going on with business and everything.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And I'll make sure I link to all your social media and your website in the show notes.
Oh, I appreciate that.